This one wasn't really a planned revenge, but it's one I still feel guilty about whenever I think about it. When I was a kid I was extremely easy to scare with jump scares and I hated them. I would always enter fight or flight mode whenever something jumped out at me, and then I'd be mad as hell afterward. When my buddies caught on to this they made it their business in life to jump out at me and scare me any chance they got. Despite my hate of being scared I was a huge fan of Halloween and I had a Halloween party every year either close to or on the big day. Naturally this was the night when all my friends would do their damnedest to scare me so bad that I would bolt and run. They succeeded a few times when we were all under 9 years old, but something shifted in me the year I turned 10, and none of us knew it until it was too late. As usual I had my big Halloween party, as usual all my buddies were there, and as usual one of them wanted to try and scare the pants off me. About midway through the evening I went down the hall to use the restroom and while I was in there my friend, I'll call him Aaron, scampered down the hall after me and hid in a darkened doorway. I came out of the restroom, started down the hall and Aaron jumped out at me and grabbed my arm. Ordinarily something like this would have made me bolt like a little chicken shit, but for some reason that night the flight side of my fight or flight got turned off. The moment he grabbed me I whirled and punched him square in the face without even thinking about what I was doing. It was all pure instinct and after impact I realized what I'd just done and freaked out. Aaron wrenched his mask off and was clutching his face and groaning, or so I thought, and I yelled for my dad, concerned I had really hurt my friend. My dad and all my other friends came running down the hall to find out what had happened. My dad flipped on the hallway light, and what greets us? Aaron with his face covered in blood. I am instantly horrified, thinking I busted his nose, but as I'm spewing apologies to him I begin to realize he's not groaning, he's laughing. He grabs me by the hand I'd punched him with and yells, "What are you apologizing for? That was freaking awesome." And he yanked my hand up over my head like I was a boxing champ and starts telling everyone how cool it was of me to just haul off and slug him. If you haven't guessed, Aaron was a pretty cool kid. He thought it was great that I'd suddenly found the courage to defend myself. My dad helped get him cleaned up, though he insisted on keeping his now bloody costume on, and inspected his nose. Thankfully it wasn't actually broken, but I still feel a wave of guilt when I remember the sight of his face covered in blood, and remember the feeling of my fist hitting him in the schnoz. I'll always be grateful to him for handling it so well and encouraging me for standing up for myself, but I still feel so guilty about decking him that I can't even imagine how I would feel if I had actually broken his nose.
High school. Oh man, this poor kid I used to work with at Wendy's. Kevin. He was a juvenile delinquent. He was a few years older than me, a little bit bigger than me, had nasty tattoos on his neck, and supposedly was out of jail on work release. He tried to be a tough guy and bully me whenever we worked together. Stuff like generally talking smack unprovoked, getting real close up in my face, and that stance where you puff out your chest and pull your arms back like you're gonna swing. The most irritating was when he would walk right up in my face, then flinch like he was gonna throw a punch at me, then just laugh and say some rude crap. I got along with just about everyone at work, and he did somewhat, but we just did not fit together. One day the exchanges between us were so apparent and obviously stressed, everyone working was talking about me fighting him. I dispelled these rumors as I wanted to keep my job, but my destiny on this day said otherwise. First was the backdoor incident. The store had a large back door with a peephole in it, and it could only be opened from the inside. There was a buzzer outside that employees would push if they wanted back in. Well, Kevin was locked outside, and his patience, while awaiting his re-entry, had run out. Instead of tapping the buzzer, this guy was mashing it and holding it down while everyone inside went nuts. We were all busy, and I was running to the back to grab some heavy boxes. Holding these boxes, I was going to open the back door while I walked past. I tried to push on the door, but it wouldn't open. I leaned into it, but couldn't push much more because of the boxes I was holding. I was in a hurry, so I yelled, "Get back, I am going to kick the door." He did not hear me over the loud, constant buzzing. I gave that door a swift, "This is Sparta" kick, and it opened about 3 inches, then bounced closed again. WTF. I kicked again and it opened, revealing a bashed and somewhat upset Kevin. He had been trying to look in the peephole when I kicked the door. I had just broken the crap out of his nose. Like the tip was almost touching his cheek, bright red-purple, swollen eyes broken. He was pissed. Immediately, I started apologizing and backing away from him, but he came at me like a rabid monkey. Quickly, we were surrounded by employees and separated. I was told to go up front and manage fries, and to not come into the back part of the store until Kevin left to the hospital. Then the final event. Less than 10 minutes later, I was working the fries, which entails grabbing a metal basket out of boiling hot oil and dumping the fresh fries into an adjacent tray. I was doing this and everyone around me was talking about how I just broke Kevin's face. On his way, leaving our store for the hospital, he decided to come right up to me again and try to instigate a fight while I was dumping some fresh fries. Kevin pulled his signature move of flinching at me like he was going to throw a punch. I retaliated by returning my own flinch with the basket I was holding. I didn't actually hit him with an incredibly hot fry basket, but I forgot about the boiling hot oil still clinging to the basket. When I flinched at him and shook the basket, tiny flaming hot drops of grease splattered his face and neck. I had just broken his nose on accident, then threw boiling hot oil on his face on accident. Instant fight. On the ground. I'm a wrestler, so his freshly broken and burned nose was just smashed and wiped across a dirty floor for a few seconds before it was broken up. He was an absolute mess. He left for the hospital. I got sent home. That was it. No charges. No questions from my managers after. No more being scheduled with Kevin. Not even any paperwork about 2 vicious assaults and fights in the same day. I felt really bad, but simultaneously kinda justified. Both incidents were honest accidents, which could have easily been avoided if he weren't such a jerk. I still felt like the outcome was worse than reasonable. Edit. Weak attempt at formatting into paragraphs.
Had a neighbor yell at my younger brother about his weight and I took it extra personal. Didn't know how to get him back without getting caught. Then I figured out I could place nails just under the back of the tire so when he pulled out of the driveway he'd run over them. Turns out he was super poor and couldn't afford the repairs. My dad had to carpool with him to work for a month or so. I've never told anyone. Edit. Spelling. Edit 2. If my memory is correct, I believe my brother was doing some yard work or playing and became out of breath and winded so he stopped. The adult must have been upset and then said something along the lines of, "If you were skinnier you wouldn't have this problem." Edit 3. I was 10 or 11, brother was 9. Last edit I swear. My brother had been made fun of a lot in school for his weight because he couldn't keep up with other kids at lunch. If you've never been able to play with other kids because of medical problems, it's really degrading and hurts. So when an adult pointed out his insecurities, he felt like they were real and not in his head. In my stupid kid brain, I figured neither me or my bro should say what had happened. If my dad found out about the weight comments, it would come back around that I fucked the guy's tires up. I realized the truth would have been best, but hey, I was 10. Really the last edit. To all the nice people who are saying something along the lines of, "You're no better," or even worse than that guy for ruining his tires and giving him financial trouble. A couple problems with that. It wasn't thought out plan, my dudes. I was 10 and wanted to get simple revenge. It wasn't a plot to uproot this man's finances. The main Reddit post is literally about realizing you went too far. Some people may not have a brother, or a bond with a brother that puts you instantly in attack mode when that sibling is hurt or in danger. I mean it, you hurt my brothers, I'm coming down on you like bombs. Fuck that guy, he made his choice, I made mine. He got some mean karma for some mean words, and I'm sure as hell I got some karma from those punctures. Wanna mess with little brothers? Fuck 'em, I say.
So all through elementary and middle school there was this girl who had some kind of strong feelings for me, and I can't quite pin down what those feelings were, and I don't think she could either, but I don't think it was affection or sexual awakening or anything like that because she turned out a lesbian and I'm a dude, fairly effeminate though, so maybe. But anyway, she would be staring at me, and my friends would bring it to my attention, and I'd glance over at her and she'd grunt and turn her head as if she were disgusted with me, but she'd keep staring out of the corner of her eye. Anyway, I mostly tried to ignore her, but she occasionally tried to start shit with me, and I can't say I was always graceful about it. But I never picked on her or anything. But this one time she was at a table that was kind of up against a wall and her back was to the wall, and a couple other kids were sitting next to her, and I was trying to get past them so I could grab a book off a shelf, and she has her hair up in a ponytail, and I bat it with my hand and make a boop noise. Would have done it to anybody who was sitting there at the time. I was just being playful and stupid. But she hisses and grabs her hair, And I throw my hands up and apologize, and she turns her head back around, and I think it's over. Next morning I come into school. 2 teachers pull me out of class and say that this girl's mom had came into school that morning and said that this girl had come to her crying, telling her that I ripped a chunk of her hair out, and that I would pinch her and hit her, and she lived in constant fear of me. I was like, what? The teachers knew she was full of shit because it was a small class and I had never touched this girl. But they told me to just completely ignore her and not interact with her at all, don't get close to her, don't respond to her if she says anything to me, etc. So later that day my mind is still blown by this whole thing, and I'm furious that there's a woman out there who thinks I physically and emotionally attack her daughter on a regular basis. So naturally I tell my friends and half my damn class. They're all sitting across from me and I have my back facing the room. I think the room is otherwise empty, so I'm just giving them all the deets, talking about how ludicrous it all is, how everybody knows it's bullshit, and my friends are all looking at me with their eyes wide and their mouths open, and I think it's because they think the story is as crazy as I think it is, but then finally somebody tells me to turn around. This girl's mom would occasionally come in as a kind of assistant and help grade papers. Anyway, she was like 3 feet away from me doing just that while I was rambling, talking shit about her and her crazy daughter. So I turn around and make eye contact, and for a sec I feel like I'm caught, but then I'm thrilled because this woman just got my side of the story completely candid. But she looks at me like this is the end for me, and says she's gonna tell my teachers everything. And I say, oh thank God, please do, and she looks baffled and furious. Anyway, she goes to the teachers later and tells them that she overheard me talking about how I had never picked on her daughter, like I've been caught red-handed, and this is the proof she needed. But my teachers are like, no. If anything, that's more proof that your kid is full of shit, but we already knew that. It was a minor triumph, but I'm still living in the afterglow of that one. Sorry I didn't realize that story was so ridiculously long.